Hi, I'm Steelfur Speaks, and in this guide, I'm going to tell you how I rose from being a mere flesh and blood YouTuber to being the best flesh and blood YouTuber in the country. I have a secret. Now, because this is clickbait and I don't believe in clickbait, the secret is I've moved countries. I was living in the UK, obviously, with lots of great competition from Push the Point and Baz the Bard, and now I've moved to Ireland where there is less competition. Now, I'm completely and utterly joking with this. I'm not going to pretend I know all of the ins and outs of all the Irish content creators at all. It was more just sort of to make a joke that the only way to really become the best content creator in your country overnight is to, in fact, move to a different country. But that is right. I have moved successfully to Ireland about a week and a half ago. I've been to one armory. It was great. The Dublin crew in Gamers World, really fun. I couldn't make it this week because I've had a lot on at work. And next week I'm off to UK Nats, so I'm not, there's no more armories at least for another couple of weeks. But I've firmly been enjoying the armories at Nats, in Ireland, the one I've been to, and it looks like there's another one that's half an hour away from me on the weekend. So I think there's 4 stores doing Fab in Dublin alone, so I will be hitting up armories and getting those gem packs ASAP. They look great. The one armory I went to, I did get 3 prize packs of High Seas, though High Seas is running low at that store, as it is in many places. I did open a Marvel Young Puffin, so we are happy with High Seas so far. I think the only caveat with my happiness is that unfortunately, due to moving countries, I had to get the shipping of the case changed, and then it got rejected by customs and a whole other saga. But it is back on the way to me now, and I am hoping to open it before the weekend so I can get an understanding of what cards I have available from High Seas. Because I have to pick a deck for Nats. Now, I know what you're saying. Hey, Finbar, there's only 7 or 8 days until UK Nats. How have you not picked a classic constructed deck yet? What are you doing? Why do you only have Katsu with you in Ireland? You're taking the piss. Katsu is terrible. I will say to you that when I brought Katsu, I thought he was better than he was. And subsequently, I have decided that he is not good. And I ran out of time to pack any other deck. So I was going to build Katsu, Florian, and Syndra. And bring all 3 of those with me. And I just completely ran out of time. And I just threw Katsu in a bag because he was already built. But I still have to pick a deck for UK Nationals, and throwing all of my practice out the window, Nu has now Living Legend. So what do we even do with ourselves? I'm looking at various decks. I really enjoy playing Victor. I really enjoy those Guardian vibes. I feel like he has a solid matchup into a lot of heroes now, especially now that he can keep running his high-impact blues without worrying so much about Nu, and he's lost that matchup. I really like the idea of playing Victor. I like the idea of playing Syndra. She's not my favorite ninja. I just don't, throwing the daggers and stuff like that is kind of weird thinking for ninja. I prefer to be playing attacks and playing combos and sequencing things rather than just like doing 0 for 3s and daggers. And I know I say that having played Fi for years. Fi is back on the table. We love to see a Fi doing well. I love to see Fi doing well. I would happily play Fi at another competitive event. And then also I do, I love nature themes. I'm a Druid fan. We'll get one eventually. If they bring out Shaman before Druid, I'll play Shaman. That's fine. But we do have these 2 Earth heroes that are doing very well, and I have been playing a lot of Florian and a bit of Verdance, and part of me says you're probably not going to be ready to play Verdance by next week if you haven't properly got the deck already. But I could play Florian. I do think he's pretty solid. So I'm currently doing what I do before large events because, if we're being honest, I don't have the time to do tons of testing. I'm not on a team. That time when I had that input for Fab, I've been painting. This is my latest kit bash, Warhammer. I don't know if you can see it. I call it No Pig in the Bath. Hold up. It's basically like 2 orcs trying to have a mud bath, and then a pig jumps in, and then you've got loads of little goblins doing lots of fun stuff. I posted photos on Blue Sky. This goblin at the back with all the yellow armor is on armor cleaning duty, but I've been doing stuff, and we're kind of doubling down on my let's do multiple hobbies rather than one all the time. But and Riftbound is coming out. That looks really cool. I'm going to be looking and doing some content around that. But the point is that if you engage in Fab in the way that I do, realistically, your best value, I think, and I personally feel this, if you're preparing for a national championships where you want to do well, but you're kind of accepting that your odds of winning it without a team, without a lot of practice, without going to, constant armories, all that kind of stuff is quite low, is to just be very kind of data driven and flexible, right? And by that I mean, there's really good websites. Fab Blazing Data is one. There's a Google sheet that does something similar, which show you win rates for heroes at large events, and you can see what the win rate was in the later rounds or when heroes started to win, and they give you qualifying percentages and all these other kind of things. Take that data and try and have a look at the heroes that you feel more comfortable on, who is doing well, and which decks are performing, and what configuration it is. And you're going to lose points, right? And when I say you're going to lose points, I mean like you're going to lose games because you didn't practice a matchup as much as someone else. You're going to lose games where if you changed your sideboard to have 2 tenacities instead of 1 tenacity, you would win. You're going to lose games because you missed sideboards. You're going to do all of that stuff through inexperience, but by following the trends of what heroes are performing well in the meta, by reading that correctly and getting a good understanding of what heroes you think are going to show up, how much Gravy are we going to see, how much Florian, how much Verdance, and then looking who has a good matchup into those heroes. And throughout your practicing, you've played lots of games with lots of different decks. You've played 20 games with one hero, 20 games with another one. You've done a lot of drafting. You're kind of setting yourself up to be in the situation I am in, which is the week before Nationals. I don't actually really know what deck I'm going to play. I have a stable of characters and decks that I've tried. I have lists from large events that have happened in the last 2 or 3 weeks that I understand, and I have a good understanding of which matchups work. And based on that, a bit of feely crafting and a bit of like just how I feel about certain heroes, I will pick a deck probably tomorrow or definitely this weekend. And once I've picked that deck, I've told my partner, I've told the dog who's sleeping off over there that I'm locking in for Fab for the next week. And I'm flying back to the UK, so I'm going to be alone. The dog's going to be in Ireland. And I'm going to lock in. I'm going to play as many games as I need of CC. I'm going to get that deck practiced, and I'm going to feel great. Right, and that's the approach that I'm taking at the moment. And I think it's a good approach to take if you can't be as serious about the game, if you know you don't have as much time, if you have other hobbies that you want to get involved in, right? And it's efficient too, I should say. In defense, because I think you should be doing this even if you were more serious and you were more competitive, is that it is very efficient, right? Because you could spend an hour playing one game with a Guardian deck. Or you could spend an hour reading data and seeing what's happening there. Remember, I am an analyst by profession, so looking at charts and spreadsheets and figuring out what I think is a good deck is my strength. So that's where I am with Nats. I'm really excited about it. High Seas draft. We're going to talk about High Seas a lot, right? We're going to talk about High Seas a lot in the latter half of this podcast. Remember, we like to make them 20 minutes long. We like to cover roughly 2 topics. High Seas draft is phenomenal. I genuinely feel like I haven't had as much fun drafting a set ever. I feel like this. I said it on Blue Sky, and let's humble brag. James White liked it. But I genuinely think that High Seas is the best Flesh and Blood set to date. I feel. Sorry, 1 second. Dog barking. But let's break down why. Right. All the classes have a shared identity. We've seen that practiced in sets like Bright Lights. Didn't work very well. But with the shared pirate identity, things have worked quite well. She wouldn't stop barking, so I have drafted my lovely assistant to help me with this video. So let's just break it down. Why is High Seas such a fantastic set? We'll segue into that from the draft discussion. But let's talk. So they all have a shared identity, that pirate identity, which we saw tested in sets like Bright Lights, which we saw semi-tested in Rosetta because they all had this arcane theme that they shared. But it really is like what Bright Lights should have been, where there is an option to draft like generic mech cards. There is an option to draft generic pirate cards. And those cards give you a lot of strength and a lot of core identity But then there is also this unique class-based identity that you can specialize into to big payoff, right? A lot of the mech decks that are being drafted are almost entirely mech cards. Or if you're drafting Marilyn and you're getting a load of blue arrows that block really well, you can always make a Goldfin Harpoon and send things. So, to me, those draft archetypes are really well established. And if you haven't yet read the Simon Nielsen article, I think I said it was Pablo in my last video, but anyway, Pablo wrote the Marilyn deck guide. But if you read the Simon Nielsen Fab Pro Drafting Guide, just go and read it and understand from that there isn't just one archetype for every hero. There's about 3, right? You can draft Fatigue Marilyn. You can draft all red spine Manta Marilyn. Just uses 0-cost arrows and buffs. You can draft a buff-focused Puffin. You can draft a cog-focused Puffin. Which gun you use is very important and very nuanced. Gravy can use allies and be ally focused, or you can actually just use the compass to find out when you've got a blue on top so that you can crack a gold and then send any high tide 2-card attack in your hand, right? The red Swiftwater sloops, the yellow boats, those are super powerful. So if you're sitting on a gravy and you got 1 gold, your opponent attacks you, you're going to tap your compass, you're going to see that there's another blue on the top of the deck, and then you're going to go in, block with 2 cards, block 6, that's really efficient, and then send in a 3 for 7 or a 4 for 7 with that gold and with that card on the deck. Probably having overpower, probably getting your gold back. And the next turn you do it again and you're just being super efficient and it feels really great. Never mind the Swiftwater sloops, the go-agains, and all the other things that can come to you as well. Just like that basic recipe is really good. And the fact that those draft archetypes exist. And then on top of that, now this is the part that actually I think is more controversial because I'm on the fence about Scurv. On the one hand, it's a delight. It's a delight that you can draft heavily into Pirate. You can be going to build a high tide focused Pirate deck that uses gold and blues out of gravy. And then pack 2 comes around and you see, actually, I can just play all those Pirate cards. And he is balanced. Like, he can do some crazily aggressive turns. But he is balanced by the fact that he can't make Gold Kiss Rum and use it every turn. And also his defense values are often terrible. A lot of the block value in the set comes from class-based cards. So only having access to Pirate cards, especially because even the people who are in certain classes are all drafting the 3-block Pirate cards as well. So only having access to certain Pirate cards is, a weakness you can't block as well. That being said, he can do crazy damage. And also, I'm not sure I like the fact that he can show up in any draft and he can show up in any pack and kind of distort the way that people are drafting. It's good, it's bad. I think on pros and cons, I think it's positive and I think I like it. And I think I'm glad that they've done it. And I think it's really interesting. And I think it makes the replayability of the set fantastic. I think there are some downsides, but I think having this hidden fifth character that you have to draft is entirely a win. And if we talk about the wins, Scurv is a win. Having multiple weapons for each hero in the draft is a win. Having multiple archetypes for each hero in the draft is a win. I want to see how this applies to a set where not everyone shares a common theme. But then I guess the Pirate cards are just generic and it doesn't really matter. Just have generic cards and then Pirate cards, right? And that will be the difference. But I find that quite interesting as well. So let's put a pin in that. In terms of design, I think all of the heroes in the set are just phenomenally designed. And I think it's just worth calling out. Gravy Bones, his looting mechanic, you draw, you discard, you get value off discarding. Lots of nuance as to whether you want to discard a blue so you can play allies in your graveyard or discard a graveyard card, discard an ally card. I think his deck is just so great, and we've already seen the power in the deck come through, which I think is just fascinating. And I feel like people are cutting allies to add powerful attacks. They're cutting powerful attacks to add allies. The deck doesn't feel solved, but also like the best decks in Fab, like the best illusionist decks and control decks and things like that, it feels like there is a lot of trade-offs you can make for specific matchups. that mean that good players are rewarded for practice. Go on, say hello. Good players are rewarded for practice and, like, you know, choosing which matchups they want to win. And that, to me, is really great. I think Marilyn shows a lot of potential. I really like her, you know, her loop turns with the, you know, 2 blues and a gold, fires a 6 power cannon. It's good. It's got overpower. You know, it's interesting. We'll see where it goes. I feel like she's going to be a very easy hero to buff. You know, you can just print another harpoon or print another effect that sort of gives her a bit of a buff. So I feel she'll get buffed soon. And I feel like she'll get 1 or 2 cards in expansion slots, and that will bring her up to power level of probably just below Azalea once Azalea's gone. They probably don't want to buff her too much until Azalea's gone. You know, we're going to have that one big arrow ranger in the meta at a time. And I think once Azalea's gone, we'll start to see buffs coming out for Marilyn. That's what I'm betting on. I have bought my CLA Sarong. I have bought my EA Goldfin Harpoon. I think it's just going to be the case. I did say I would never play a Ranger again, but I think Marilyn is just too cool not to play. And then you have Puffin, and Skyships are great. And Skyships are great and just really fun. I don't think, you know, I don't know if she's necessarily as powerful, but like Marilyn, I have a feeling that Puffin gets buffed when Dio and Dash IE start to rotate. I think we'll start to see buffs for those heroes. She's already pretty cool. She's already doing something different to boost, but I just feel like she's super interesting. But like Marilyn, I think she'll get buffed later on and things will be much better. And yeah, I just think it's a really great set. I've been really happy with it. Otherwise, you know, things have been kind of progressing as they normally do in the world of Flesh and Blood, right? I mean, we've kind of, you know, we've had a lot of really great tournaments, a lot of really great casting, by the way. Shout out to Howling Minds from the UK. I have called for a long time for, you know, for more non-US voices that can represent global fab. And I think in Howling Minds, you've found a very, very good voice. He's, you know, affable. He's from the UK. He represents a large number of UK players. He's very friendly. He brings great energy to the stream. I think LSS should use him firmly. And I think also, you know, we have, I think, a very, very good cast now from all over different parts of the world. And I think when those come, you know, when it comes together, I feel like I can say it in a way that I didn't say it a few years ago, that the fab casting now represents more of the world than it did before. I feel like it's diverse. It feels great to watch and listen to. Before it was too US focused. I feel like we've transcended that, and I'm really happy to see these great casters get rewarded. And I feel the energy. I want to watch them cast, and I want to watch tournaments where they're casting. I can't guarantee I'm going to watch Pro Tour Auckland. I'm not sure I want to see WTR sealed again. I don't think I can handle it, but maybe I'll tune in while I'm doing some painting or while I'm doing some chores around the house and have a look. You know, I would be excited. Let's put it this way. I would be really excited to be playing WTR Alpha again. I really would. I'm not sure I get as excited to watch sealed or a draft. Let's put it that way. If I had the budget, and I hadn't just moved flats, and I didn't have this one, who obviously, you know, she is a delight. And say hello. She is a delight, but, you know, she has her expenses. She has her needs. If I didn't have all of these things, I would probably be in Auckland in 3 weeks. But I do, and I have no regrets. So that is the way that things are going to go. How do you feel about High Seas? Do you share my enthusiasm for the set? What do you feel about the draft? Have you had a chance to do many drafts? Do you feel it's fun? Do you feel it's the dynamic and changeable experience that I feel like? Or do you feel it's too complicated because there's too many ways to get punished? You know, it's not just draft the best card for every class. You have to be aware of what archetype you're falling into and make sure you're drafting enough blues and enough specific cards to enable that archetype. Like, certain versions of Marilyn really play off Golden Tipple, others don't, and you kind of really need to be in a situation where you know where you're going to go and making sure you've got a good deck, and then take that game plan through to the tournament, you know, to the extent of, am I blocking more, am I setting up overpower, am I, you know, trying to play high tide cards? You know, there's all of these questions. And I think it makes it a great format, but I can understand why some people might feel overwhelmed. Do you have a favorite new High Seas hero? Have you bought into High Seas? Now, for the diehard listeners, I do want to do one last bit at the end. I do just want to talk about and this is just like, you know, we've always said you get the honest opinion of what is happening in the Flesh and Blood world from me. You don't get, you know, I obviously filter it through my own lens, and I check when I have a source who's telling me something, whether I think it's true or not. All of these things. But High Seas, Fab is too expensive. Let's just go out and say it. Fab is too expensive. I've seen multiple Reddit posts. I've seen people complaining. I've seen the price of a Gravy Bones deck. Hell, I've seen the price of a Marilyn deck. They're all running Fabled out the, you know, they're running Eyes, and they're running Riches of Tropaldani, which seems to be, you know, just nowhere, and it's 225 quid. It's the most expensive, most playable Fable we've had in ages. Don't print playable Fables. I don't know how. I've said this before. All of the playable Fables from WTR and all of those sets need to be banned. Any new playable Fable just cannot be printed. Print thematic Fables that people want to chase, or collections like Mistcoat Gully, like Korshem. Don't print playable Fables. £200 card. If it improves your matchup, competitive players are going to buy it. If competitive players are going to buy it, other competitive players are going to buy it. If those people are playing in mid-level competitive tournaments, people at the bottom are going to feel pushed to buy it. Like, if you play it in Victor, you can draw 2 cards from pitching one card. You pitch it to a gold, you draw 2 cards, and you have gold neutral. Like, these things are crazy. Richard Tropaldani shouldn't be printed. It's too good. And High Seas has not, you know, there needs to be a Wave 2. Wave 2 needs to come out soon. Wave 2 is not, unfortunately, going to fix the thing that frustrates me the most, right? The set is not a successful launch if it is required to be competitive at national season when it comes out, and there is not enough product to make the prices reasonable to build decks for national. It is not a successful launch. It is a failed launch. Call it what it is. Cards are currently too expensive. We haven't had a drastic enough impact of the reprints that have happened. We haven't had a reprint of Shelter the Storm, which we desperately needed. And LSS should have predicted the demand for that card would be so high at a Majestic level in Hunted, and they should have organized a reprint of it sooner. Again, in the next set, I think if we're going to print a generic Majestic, we can print it in 2 sets in a row. I think it will still be valuable. A lot of the generic Majestics, like, you know, Weakest Link and all those things, are still quite expensive. Stop printing stuff at legendary rarity. Print it at Majestic. If you've realized that a card like Command and Conquer or Codex of Frailty desperately needs a reprint, print it at Majestic. Short print it if you want, right? But don't just leave things the way they are. The game is rapidly becoming too expensive. And let's be honest, the game is rapidly becoming a bit of a joke when it comes to pricing, right? Bit of a joke. And I don't say that lightly, but we've got people saying, hey, Pokemon's really good right now. You can buy a competitive deck for 50 quid. People are going to play One Piece. You can buy a competitive deck for 100 or 200 quid. Riftbound is coming out in only like 3 or 4 months. And it's looking like it's going to be affordable. And there's going to be tons of cards printed. You are in a competitive market. There is no doubt in my mind. Again, I do this channel. I love Blood. I enjoy playing Flesh. No doubt in my mind, Flesh and Blood represents the pinnacle of both, in my opinion, TCG game design and a competitive landscape and environment. What a TCG is possible. Those 2 things are true. I value Flesh and Blood. I think it's fantastic. If you do not fix the cost problem to build a deck, right, and it's not just the latest deck coming out, it's not just Gravy Bone. It's the cost to build a tier 2 deck from this set. It's the cost to build Marilyn. That's going to cost me 400 quid to buy all the gold-baited hooks and all the bits and pieces, especially if I have to include riches. Now that's on the side. Get rid of Eye of Ophidia. It's in multiple decks at this point. The second a Fable goes into anything except a niche deck, get rid of it, right? Just get it gone, because it's just a joke. If it gives you 2 or 3 percentages in a match, it's a joke, right? It's a joke that there's a £400 card that is really hard to access, and it gives you a couple percentages of value in a deck. And it's really good in the decks that it's in. I Heart, gone. Light of Soul, gone. Chaos Gem, gone. The new Val the Gem, gone. All of them should go. Any playable Fabled that isn't just kooky and fun, Deathmatch Arena, Mystical Gully, Korshem, gone. They should all be gone. Dashy thinks we're game. And they should just all be gone, right? We're getting to that point. I think we can say the game has evolved to a mature point. Aggressive reprint strategy that reprints any Majestic worth over 30 quid, gets the price down to about 10, 15. Perfect. Fabled's gone. Legendaries, I'm a bit more relaxed on the legendaries. I think Rainbow Foil version's sitting around 35 to 40. But reprints, where's our Crown of Dominion? Where's our Crown of Providence? Where are those reprints? Quick Dodge Flexes probably needs a reprint already. Get those reprints done. It's starting to become ridiculous. And, you know, we're starting to see a build-up of posts. I've encountered it locally when I went to armories of people saying, well, I was going to get into the game from Magic, but I couldn't afford the deck that I wanted. We've been talking about it for over a year at this point. It's still getting worse. And cards keep getting printed that just look like everyone needs to buy a copy. Shelter was the most recent example. In this set, I don't know. I'm trying to think, what is the example? Midas Touch, maybe. It's 15 quid. Somewhat more acceptable. Gold-plated Hook, but that's a legendary, so we're a bit more generous about that. But, I mean, let's also just not ignore the fact that all of the single sellers reported that certain yellow Majestics seem to be underprinted by accident, right? I mean, that's also just another thing. But look, I don't want to go on. I don't want to keep going on a rant about price. I really want them to aggressively tackle. And I said this the last time I did a long form video. I view the price of cards as the biggest problem that Flesh and Blood faces, and I still maintain that is true. I'm not saying Majestic should be printed into a set coming out, and some of the Majestics being 2 quid. It's not great, right? We don't really want that. 5, 10, 15, perfect. Obviously, the less played stuff is going to be cheap. That's fine. But we need a better system of reprints, aggressive system of reprint. We need to be aggressively dropping the price of staple playable cards away from the 100, 200 range, and accept that Fabled are not controllable price without printing them into the ground or making them bad, right? And just make any playable Fabled off the table. Not printing them. Riches of Tropal Donny is a mistake. 225 quid, it's being put into all these decks. I think it's very, very good. We know why they said it was controversial internally. Get it out the door. Get it out the door. And I know it hurts. I know it's going to hurt. I know it's going to piss off a lot of people. I personally own Art. I own, Light of Soul. I know I own the Grandeur of Valai. I own all of these playable things. And I'm telling you that they cannot be in the game. It literally does not make sense. Turning to your collection and saying this card is worth 350 quid, and it's a really good card in this competitive format, in the brand new hero this year. Absolutely unacceptable. I'm going to leave you with that. I put this section last deliberately. I know the majority of people aren't going to listen to it. That is a deliberate choice, because I think if you're listening this long, you deserve my unfiltered, accurate view and take on everything that's going on. But I don't want to turn people off who just want the positivity. They should hear the truth, which is Nats is coming up. We're really excited about it. High Seas, I still think, is the best set that has been designed for Flesh. Of that. The designers for the game have matured massively. They're coming up with great concepts, and they're really refining what makes a draft fun. And remember that, 5 months ago, I said draft shouldn't exist in Fab. I said it was not designed for it. It didn't work. And I do believe that is true of sets where there's 3 classes and there's no overlap and things. But high seas is the sort of thing where draft really works. Overlap between classes. Dual class cards, for example, work well as two. This is fab drafting. Really, I mean, I've done, 40 so far? I plan on doing another 40. And I've enjoyed a lot of those. I've been frustrated, I've been happy, I've been sad. It's been TCG. I'll leave you with that. Just, I am positive. Still love Fab. I haven't just gone and turned into a Warhammer player. I haven't even actually played a game of any form. But I'm trying to learn how to play Kill Team and Spearhead. So if you want to teach me on TTS or something, do, and that'll be great. Otherwise, I'm Steelfur Speaks. I do still have a Patreon, which again, I'll talk about at the end. It is just for people who want to support me. And the only perk, which I'm working out with Talishar at the moment, is going to be that you can play with my Tree of Life legally distinct Korshem as a playmat. And I'm working out some sleeves that are going to be based on that. You can use those two if you want. And if that's cosmetic pack, I guess, it's worth £3 a month, then you can use it. If it's not, I completely understand. I do not do this channel for money. I do this channel for the love of flesh and blood. And because I think that the game needs voices that are strong, solid, independent, critical, but loving, caring, want the game to succeed, but not afraid to say, LSS, hey, what is happening with Codex of Frailty? That is played by one hero in the brand new set, hero from the last set, and it's still 35 quid. Get me some reprints. Yeah, get me some reprints. I do not want to have to pay 120 quid to buy that set. That's it. I'm going to go and walk the dog and put her to bed. Loves the word walk, don't you, Dash? Walkies? Walk? Tired, so she'd be like, what the hell do you mean we're going walk? But as always, I'm Steelfur of Steelfur Speaks. This is Dashy, the corgi, and second love of my life. And, we are in Dublin. That's all right. Speak to you all soon. Have a great week. If you're going to a national championships, let me know how it goes. And I will speak to you all very, very soon.